Welcome back to Lost in Postulation. It's another week. It's another podcast. I'm Nicola Volpi, and I am joined by a man who tucked in his ankle socks into his hiking boots and worked his way up to the summit of Mount Everest for the sake of world peace. Welcome back, Neil Fitzpatrick.
Delighted to be back once again. And as I sit here, you've sent me down the rabbit hole of just what socks do they wear when they summit? I mean, we know it's not ankle socks.
That's a good
question.
But
how thick are we talking? Is it 2 layers? Is it like, these are the questions. I really don't know.
That's a good question. So there are like hiking socks, which are kind of a go between what you would use, for running and what you would use for skiing.
And how much do they vary? I'm uncovering a massive gap in my knowledge, but are these different from like normal socks, really?
They are different, like in terms of more the thickness and the technicality, but that's probably something that's come in the last 10 years. So when they went up Everest in the 80s, they probably didn't have these, and they still made it up, right?
See, I was going to say, this feels like an area that's ripe for exploitation, where you can like make normal socks and say, these are hiking socks, and you can charge like €200 for them and people will pay.
Yeah, I think so.
Fantastic.
I think so.
New business idea.
The Everest limited edition, you could probably, double it up. But yeah, I think there's probably other things while you're going up Everest that will make more of a difference. Will bring about more marginal gains.
Higher ROI on the other things. That's fair. That's fair. Fantastic. Did not mean to take us so far off piece.
This is a socks podcast.
Sockscast. Here we go. Change the name. Right. We're back.
We are back.
It's episode time.
Yes, it is, and it doesn't stop. We churn them out every week until we don't.
Yeah, a few people are shocked by that actually. Like when I've been talking to people about it, and they say, "Oh, you do a podcast? Cool." That part they buy, and then they're like, "How often do you do it?" And I'm like, "Every week." And that's the part where like, every week, Jesus Christ! Like, I don't see the big issue. Like, it's good. Like, this works for us. Yeah.
Right? 1 hour a week.
A lot of content.
How difficult can it be?
Then again, when you think of it, 12 hours of content now, with this episode included, out there into the ether.
That's 6 movies.
That's half a day. You can like, somebody who didn't know the podcast could get up on a Saturday and just spend the whole day. That's and we don't recommend it, but I mean, you do you. But geez, okay.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Well, we'll see if they get sick of us or if they keep coming back.
The numbers are looking good. But
numbers are looking good. We're happy about that, and we're happy to be involving the community more and more in the podcast, as we will today as well.
Absolutely. This episode in particular is a great one for getting listeners involved, as you'll see, listener. So,
yes. And so, what do you got for me today on episode 12, Neil, to kick us off?
Well, as you know, and as the listener may know by now, we do like an old mundane postulation to kick us off.
We are mundane.
Yeah, indeed. And in fact, sometimes we go just for a topic like, what's your take on this? What's your take on that? But what we've enjoyed a lot, actually, and what has garnered a lot of response from the listeners are the X versus Y debates, where you say still versus sparkling, or pants before socks or socks before pants. These are the ones that get the listener riled up to an unusual degree.
We are a polarized society, after all.
Indeed, we're just banking in on that, cashing in the polarization of our time. But what I wanted to ask you, sir, today is one of the big ones. And I'm talking, of course, about air travel. And when it comes to air travel, which is a field rife with postulation in its own right, but I'm going to ask you today about the aisle versus the window. Where do you want to be?
I'm actually flying tomorrow.
Uh-huh.
And I went out of my way, both for that flight and the return flight, to book the aisle seat.
Finally, one we agree on, because usually,
really?
like with the sandwiches and everything, we've always disagreed, right?
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we're just being contrary for the sake of it, but actually on this one, I'm with you. So I'm an aisle man all the way.
Yes.
I think the window has its place, and I've definitely had some good window flights. But anyway, give me your principled view on this one.
Yeah. So there's 2 angles to tackle this from, right? The first one is why the aisle, right? And why the aisle, for me, it's all about freedom of movement. Yeah. So first thing first. Don't feel as claustrophobic, right? You can turn around a bit more, certainly more than in the middle seat, but also, the aisle, the window, you can be quite locked in there, right?
Absolutely.
So, but then freedom of movement also, I'm the type of person who, even on just a 2-hour flight, will, no matter what, need to use the facilities at some point, right?
Fair.
And I don't want to be having to negotiate with my fellow passengers and or family members to get out there. Or worse, be caught in the act while they're sleeping of climbing over them, which is just awkward on so many levels, and I've been there.
Yeah,
it's not fun.
Nobody deserves that, I feel.
No, exactly. Neither the perpetrator nor the perpetrated, right? In that case. So that's on the aisle front. On the window front, I think it's incredibly overrated, because a big part is, you talk about the view, right? Now, the view is very limited on most flights. It's the takeoff, it's the landing. If you're traveling in winter or with bad weather, it's often not even those, right? So the other aspect they bring about on the window is, oh yeah, but you can lean your head and sleep. But
so overrated.
Overrated. I mean, invest in a neck pillow, people.
Come on, it's 2023. Yeah,
exactly.
100%. I'm actually with you for different reasons, though. Totally different reasons. So, first and foremost, as a taller gentleman, I hate, flying is uncomfortable by definition, right? Yeah. My knees are going to be crushed up against the seat in front of me, particularly on a Ryanair, on the older configurations of Ryanairs where they had these big chunky seats. Your knees are getting damaged every time. So, one slight respite from that is having the aisle, because you can just stick the two legs out into the aisle, and I can get a bit of space that way, because there is no way to stick my legs out directly in front of me. So that's nice. That comes with a downside, though, which is when they bring the trolley past, it's always a smack on the legs or on the shoulder or something. I feel the trolley and me don't get on too well,
and you can't really sleep if you need to be alert to be able to bring your legs back in all the time.
Exactly. Right? And you're also the guy who has to get up when person B and C are getting to the bathroom, right? So I feel like it's not without its downsides, but that's flying to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And the thing with the window seat is, like you, I do agree with you on that point, that I am just that terminally awkward that I would rather just hold it than ask a sleeping person. I certainly wouldn't climb over. Jeez, I'm not risking that minefield.
It takes a lot of agility.
Exactly. Okay, I'm going to ask it. When you climb over, are you crotch first or ass first to the person?
Let me think.
There is no good answer here.
There is no good answer. I'm definitely crotch first, so I see what I'm dealing with.
It feels more respectful.
It is more respectful, but it's also a bit less risk in a way.
Yeah.
Where
you can use your hands to catch yourself.
Yourself. Exactly. And that's exactly it. You might, inadvertently make contact if you're the other way around, simply because you don't see what's behind you, right?
And suddenly you've got an ass in someone's face. My God.
But that's definitely the strategy, I think. I think so. If you have to do it.
If you have to. And I mean, I'm talking, if it's less than 3 hours flight, I'm like, doesn't matter. I'll survive. Yeah, I will survive. I'll be fine, How bad can it be? Unless it's an emergency of some kind. Let's not get into that on the podcast. I feel like let's not discuss the technicalities of a bathroom break. But once again, interested to hear. I know many people would say window all the way. It's their happy place. They can just cuddle up and go sleep there and whatever. Yeah. But isn't it funny how middle seat is just universally agreed to be horrible? Middle seat. What a terrible...
It gets a really bad rep. Now, Maria, she loves the window.
Okay.
Not the middle.
I thought you were best in the middle. I was like, Jesus.
She loves the window. So oftentimes I do find myself on a 3-3 configuration to not just be weird and have a rando sitting in between us. I find myself in the middle seat. It's not so bad, I think.
If you have a companion to your left, then you're good. Or right. Right. Because you can invade their space without feeling bad. But imagine having two randos either side. That's the worst.
And it depends on the length of the flight. And then, like you said, it is important who you're next to. Because what I find oftentimes when you fly is that people decide that it was a good idea to leave their brain at home and their manners.
Yeah.
And the classic one on that is when they get up or they're sitting down, without even noticing it, they're pulling the seat back that's in front of them,
and you're swinging back.
But it's why would you do that? It's my biggest pet peeve on flights is people just not being aware of their surroundings and annoying the hell out of you. I'm getting agitated.
I can see that. But what I love about this as well is I'm like that, like you. When, say, a vibration hits my chair, a knee hits my back of my chair, I instantly jump to, what is this asshole doing?
You think they're out to get you.
They're literally just bullying you, it's playground bullying, when in actual fact, it's probably a purely innocent...
oblivious.
Completely. And I think I've often tried to practice the phrase, never attribute to malice what can be attributed to stupidity. And in general, I'm with you, it's stupidity rather than malice at core here. I have also had a few kids behind me who are just bam, 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 just banging away. Flying, who needs it? Jeez, I'm maybe it's one for a future episode, but trains versus planes, I'm trains all the way,
What's your what's your time threshold from which you would then shift from a train to a plane? How much are you willing to put up with a train?
I'm willing to I would double my journey time and still be happier with a train. Because, for example, I've taken a train to Stockholm where it's overnight. You sleep on the train, and it was the dream. It
like
was
7
amazing.
hours. Huh?
Yeah, but like that train takes 5 hours normally. But then if you take the overnight, they make it slower. So you get on at Copenhagen at like 10, and you wake up at 6 or 7 in Stockholm
With a bed or with...
yeah, full bed, like full shower, toilet, everything.
Oh,
like
wow.
it's the dream. Like you save a night of accommodation that you don't have to pay there in Stockholm. You wake up ready to go, and just save yourself the hassle of getting on a plane and dealing with all that. More to come on night trains, by the way. I really think there's an episode on that because we are going to see in the next 10, 20 years that Europe is finally stepping into the future and installing fast, like high-speed rail across Europe.
Across Europe. That's the key, right? Because we have it regionally and in some countries.
Per country. Yeah. France has nailed it. But there will be a night train
Italy,
route.
let's give them some credit. From time to time, we can give them some credit.
We have to dish it out in small doses.
Exactly, or else they'll get way too arrogant.
Yeah. But geez, we've gone on probably long enough on our mundane postulation now that I think of it. But we have some big topics to get into today.
We do, definitely. But I'll throw this out to you.
Please.
Lost in postulation, live recording from a night train.
Yes.
How about that?
Annoying all the fellow passengers in the cabin. They would love it.
They will love it.
I think that we've gotten great praise for the audio quality. So I mean, we can afford a hit or two.
With
so
a chugga in the background.
I think it'll be like ASMR. Like people will enjoy it. It'll be like helping you to fall asleep kind of content.
It's a bit of folklore, right?
Exactly. Part of the lore now. Yeah.
Yes.
Postulation verse.
If you would like to be part of the lore yourself, listeners, Neil, what can they do?
I believe they can tweet at us at Impostulation on Twitter.
There you go.
Always welcome to reach out. And they can also hit up our email address, which is lostinpostulation@gmail.com. Always happy to hear from you. And of course, if you have any other means of reaching us, please do. We've received many sorts of communiques one way or another. Voice messages are always welcome as well, as you'll hear today. So please do reach out.
Absolutely. So listeners, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and then we will be back with an action-packed episode.
And welcome back once again, listeners. Welcome back to something I'm going to enjoy a little bit too much, which is sweet validation for a prediction I made a couple of episodes ago. From there, we're going to get into a very interesting topic, of course, which is, as you will have seen now from the episode title, a discussion around Chris Rock. What has he been up to and what has he produced for us? Nicola is going to bring us a bit through that. But first, let's listen back, if we may, to a little clip from episode 4, way back before this year even started. What was it that I said about Chris Rock? Putting that to one side. Chris Rock has been weirdly quiet on this, and I think he knows exactly what he's doing. And he even referenced that recently. He was doing a stand-up show, I think, in September of this year, and somebody he takes questions from the audience. So he got a question about the slap, as I'm sure he does every time he does this, and he said something to the effect of, "Guys, you paid for these tickets, but you didn't pay that much. I'm not getting into it here. I'm going to talk to Netflix about that," or something like that. He said it as a joke, but a lot of truth is said in jest, and I actually think he's going to have a documentary at some point, which is like Chris got slapped. Everybody slaps Chris. Something along those lines.
Produced by him.
At least in part, like he's going to have a big deal with Netflix where they will buy exclusive rights to his take on it, basically. And he'll talk through it and how deeply it affected him, and maybe they get Will on or, whatever, right? Well.
How about that?
I'm pretty happy with that, I have to say.
I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I think it's, you could argue a stop clock is right twice a day, and maybe it's a fluke, but I also can't take all the credit here because he did kind of say it himself. Like he made the joke about selling his story to Netflix. I do wonder if at that time he had already been in talks with Netflix. Like this was back in September or something that he said it. Probably he had...
The incident happened a year ago now, right? So that's kind of the timing of it.
It's Oscars time again now, yeah. Right. So it seems like it's very much blown over. And I think Chris must have known that and realized now's the time. Oscar season, right? So maybe this has been in the tank for a while. But no better way to transition us into this topic than that quick look back to episode 4.
Yeah.
And the fact that we did indeed call it. So what we'd like to do a little bit here now is to get back into this topic. We've had it a long time ago, so it's time to revisit a little bit, particularly in light of Chris's new stand-up special.
Yes.
So, Nicola, you, sir, have watched the special.
I did indeed. I didn't watch it live. I watched it the next morning.
Which is eager, like seriously eager from your part, because it only came out a few days ago.
Exactly.
You were like wasting no time.
7:30 in the morning, Chris Rock.
Yeah.
With your breakfast.
Prime comedy time.
I highly recommend.
Absolutely. But on that point of highly recommending, do you highly recommend it? And please do give the listener your own thoughts.
I do. I think, and contextually, I recommend it even more, right? Given the journey, let's say, of the last year. First thing for me, Chris Rock, avid listener of the podcast, hopefully. Speaking to the man, I appreciate you. I'm a big fan. I've always been. I think you are one of the best stand-up comedians of your generation. You know, coming through that mid-90s SNL generation with the Sandlers, the Spades, the Fardleys, etc. And now I'm going to stop talking to him because it gets a bit weird, right? I'm going to talk about him. He's managed, regardless of having made what I assume is significantly more money through his films, he has actually kept to his craft and also kept doing what he loves. And of those guys is one of the few that still, basically 30 years later, is popping up on stages and going on tours and doing his stand-up, even though it's one of the most difficult things to do, potentially least rewarding also from a financial perspective, etc. So just, I really appreciate that. Now, in terms of the whole incident with Will and how that went down last year, and we followed up a lot on it, I think the way Chris Rock has handled it. Now, whether, you know, we won't do any moral judgments on the quality of the joke, whether he was in the right and the wrong, but beyond that, after the incident, I think the way he's handled himself has been incredibly a class act, if you will.
Yeah.
Super mature, gentleman to an extent, kept quiet, didn't kind of extend this beef or call out any things. And then he gets this Netflix deal. And I love how he handled that, because what did he not do? He didn't do the Oprah tearjerker interview. And I love Oprah, but there's a time and a place, right? He also didn't do the get a camera crew to follow me around in my personal life, 6-hour Netflix special like some of our royal friends have done. What did he do instead? He stayed true to his craft, and he said, look, I'm going to do what I do best, and I'm going to do a stand-up special and actually trial something totally new out for Netflix, which is another very interesting component here.
Well, is it new for Netflix? I wonder. Like, what's new about it for Netflix?
So the new part isn't like having a stand-up special, but to actually stream it live. So this was live television for Netflix.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that. Okay.
Which is interesting, because on the one hand, the cynic in me says, hey, Netflix is clutching at straws. They're going for live. On the other hand, like when the numbers come through of that, I think it could be something worth for them exploring, not just obviously in the niche of stand-up comedy, but with other things as well.
Yeah, this industry, I only recently learned the name of it actually. It's like simulcasting,
Yeah.
Where it's like you don't get to go to the event, but you get to watch it at the same time as it happens, right? And I think when I heard about that concept, I would have been very bullish about it actually. And it said something like, wow, this is the future of entertainment, and isn't it going to be great when we can all go to watch the simulcast of stuff? But this was like a few years ago when this started, I think, maybe just pre-COVID. And I have to say, it hasn't really taken off as a concept. Like I do remember seeing cinemas selling tickets to watch the, Berlin Philharmonic from Copenhagen, this
that
kind of
was really
stuff.
big for a while.
Yeah,
that you'd go in and see like theater.
But did you ever go to it?
No, I never did.
Yeah, me neither. And I think that's the problem. Like, it's just not such a good sell. And like, you didn't watch Chris Rock live just now either, right? Like whatever it was about the proposition, it just didn't pull you in. You're like,
that's
okay.
a fair point.
Yeah. So I'm wondering, like, it's great that they're trying something and maybe it's the future, but if I had to put money on it now as to like, will this particular thing, this concept take off as a new way of consuming performance? I'm like, nah, maybe not. Yeah.
Probably only for like kind of that blockbuster event with all that baggage as this one was, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, back to Chris, he sells out this venue in Baltimore, by the way. Awesome that he did it in Baltimore. Big fans on Lost in Postulation.
Huge, yeah.
Of the city of Baltimore. He sells this out, and he comes onto the stage. He picks up his microphone, and he gets into it.
Yeah.
And essentially, those first 20 minutes, he made me laugh quite a bit. That's the point, folks. I genuinely enjoyed it. The middle part was more kind of a transportation where I thought it lacked a bit in originality of the jokes. But I mean, he's there for an hour talking nonstop, playing off of the audience. So that's, bound to happen, I think. And then only in those last 10 minutes, and I think technically it's just those last 7 minutes, he gets into the incident. And there's like this steady crescendo. And I think just the way he did it was quite funny. I think he struck the right balance. He also wasn't petty. He didn't seem, out for revenge, whatever. And without any spoilers, then he ends with this final one-liner, which results in a mic drop, standing ovation, and then you have "Watch the Throne" by Kanye and Jay, in the background, and he's just taking in all the applause. And it was refreshing to see somebody, and definitely not his best performance. Don't get me wrong, because I mean, definitely not. And there's probably something in there about stand-up comedy, like, how difficult it is and contextual, whatever. But it was just great to see, refreshing, like I said, a master of his craft, just owning a stage like that, and answering even to kind of this beef with comedy the way he does it, without making it a 1 hour roast on Will Smith. Because that would have been too easy, actually. And that's what why I respect Chris Rock and how he approached this.
I think that I buy that argument, right? So I love that you've correctly pointed out that he had many ways to go about this, and this was probably the best of many. And I don't know how much a role he personally would have had in choosing that versus, say, doing a 6-episode macro series through Netflix, which I don't think anyone would have loved. But I have a further postulation on this, though. And maybe it's not so much against Chris, and I haven't seen it, so I'm not going to get into that specifically. But you mentioned the words there of like not making it too easy, right? That he didn't take the easy route of just roasting Will for an hour, right?
Right.
But tell me what you think of this, right? I postulate, I put to you, sir, that there are actually two types of stand-up comedy. There's stand-up comedy where you know who you're going to see and pay big money to see them, and the stand-up where you don't know who you're going to see and you are like, I'm just going to hopefully laugh. Like, let's see, it's an open mic, let's see what happens, right? And I would put to you that those two things are drastically different media / events / experiences, right? And I've been to enough big name comedy gigs. I've seen Ricky Gervais. We saw Jon Stewart. We saw Chappelle, right? Paid big money for that, or at least like somewhere in the region of 80 to 90 euro kind of thing for those
concert money.
Exactly. So there's two things that I think change the dynamic there. Number one is just sunk cost fallacy, that you've paid big money to get here. So you're going to make sure yourself that you're going to laugh your ass off. Like you're going to be quite sympathetic, I think, to everything that's said. It's unusual, I think, that you would pay 90 or 100 euro to go to a comedy gig and just sit there stone faced being like, don't like this at all. Second of all, it's the celebrities who you're just happy to see no matter what.
Right.
And that celebrity can therefore come out on stage and say basically anything. Like, I really think Chris Rock is one of those people that could come out and just be like, so I had cornflakes for breakfast today, and that crowd would go, wow, cornflakes, like just because that
also his cadence and how he says things is
and true, he is naturally gifted and funny, like for sure. But I also think that room full of people are probably the most sympathetic audience in the world, and his job therefore of making them laugh is like actually not super hard for him, I would say.
Okay, sure.
Not taking away anything from him as a comedian, he's one of the greatest, as you say, of all time. But I think he falls now into that same category that Ricky Gervais does when he does these stadium tours, which is like people are just happy to see him, and he can literally say whatever, and people will be like,
like with aging musicians is often the case, right?
Sympathetic audiences basically is what I mean. And it's so far removed from where they came from, where Chris Rock himself probably came from, which is those early days where no one knows who you are, and it's make them laugh or you're off, like you're off, you're done,
Right.
So I think my only reflection is what I'm sick of, right, is when I watch a special, as they're called now, these 1 hour specials, it seems like more of it is being taken up by applause than laughter, right? Where the comedian will say something just like, yeah, that's why I don't like the da-da-da. And the crowd goes, ha, 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 clap, 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 clap. And then as we're here sitting at home just like, okay, I agree, but let's go on, Yeah. They become these kind of applause fests or like worship fests or whatever.
It's a celebration rather than,
Exactly. It's not really comedy. So I think my hesitancy to watch it is coming from there, actually. So I'm sorry, I'm going to hand back over to you now to give you something to react to there.
I think that's a very fair point, especially when you talk about that, in the audience. And I think you and I, we had that. So we went to, it must be now more than 4 years ago, right? We went to see Chappelle and Stewart. And we had that where the first hour was Stewart, if you remember. To me, it was almost a bit lazy comedy at the time. Trump was present, and he basically did an hour at Trump, right?
Great job.
And there was some funny stuff there, but there it was more like that applause rather than laughter thing from the audience, right? Chappelle comes on, absolutely kills it, and I think some of the hardest I've laughed in my life, right?
Sure.
It can go both ways. Now, on this Chris Rock one, yes, the crowd in Baltimore, that's one thing. But I had no vested interest to be laughing in my kitchen while I'm having breakfast.
Yeah.
Right? From home. And that's how I measured it. And like I said, I genuinely laughed those first 15, 20 minutes and those last 10. And that part in between was more what you're talking about, I think. Exactly. Where probably I'm not being harsh enough on that part in between either because it's Chris Rock.
Exactly. You're like, well, the legend is here. You're just happy that he's producing content whatsoever.
I think it's fair. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a good shout. It's a good shout.
I'm proud of that. Yeah.
You're nailing a few today, huh?
Yeah, a few postulations. Yeah.
No, absolutely. But I think it's what it really got me thinking about, because I hadn't watched, stand up in a while, but it's also like, and like I said, like how hard this thing is to do. And I know actually you've had some experience in the field, so maybe you can tell us firsthand.
Well, I think it's good to get into it because what I was hoping to use this section for is basically a massive encouragement to anybody with even the slightest inclination to ever doing it. Just freaking find a way to do it. Don't care what age you are, what part of what life stage you're in. Please find a way to get to an open mic, write 5 minutes of material and do it. Because honestly, probably one of the best things I ever did in terms of like life experiences, right? I won't get into the whole story of it, but basically I ended up doing it almost unplanned. I was with some friends who were doing a comedy show in Edinburgh, and the support act dropped out and they needed anyone to open the show. And I was like, I guess I could try it.
And this is how long before having to hit the stage?
About 3 hours, 4 hours.
Oh, wow.
So the adrenaline is dumping at this point, and we together, it wasn't me writing it, me and that group of guys, we just kind of threw together a few jokes, 5 minutes of stuff, and 5 minutes is like 3 minutes because you have to have time for laughing and transitions and whatever. So
okay, yeah.
But anyway, getting on the stage, when it actually came down to it, was like the scariest, the most adrenaline pumping thing ever, but it went ridiculously well. I don't know why to this day, but what happened then was for the following like 4 hours, I would say for the entire rest of the night, I was on the highest of highs. You literally like nothing beats it. And like I've tried many other things. I've had things go well, say in a work context, or I've had, concerts that go well, and then but nothing comes close to this. You come off the stage feeling like there's nothing that I can't do. It's like phenomenal. And since then, before you do it, you always feel I could never do it. No way. Like, no way. What if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong? And having done it once, your perspective shifts a bit, at least for me, where it's like, who cares? Like, yeah, it goes wrong. Whatever. Like, I survive. I'm fine. And that same realization gets carried over to every part of your life then after, at least for me. Maybe I sound like some kind of a self-help guru here, but like, all I'm saying is...
you are a self-help guru.
I guess I'm becoming one slowly but surely. But my point, I guess, is like getting to a point of jumping into something that can go massively wrong. And even if it does go massively wrong, which I've also had in subsequent gigs, it did go wrong. But what you realize is nothing matters. Like it does not hurt at all. Like you an hour later are back to normal, and therefore every other time you go to present in work, or you go to like do something big out in the world in whatever context, like say when I was at your wedding, I was doing like a kind of an MC kind of role, right? No nerves. I was just like, it's going to be fine. Like it'll be like
you play the audience too, right? Like
100%. And like you learn that, I guess, through more time than I've spent doing stand-up. But like, I guess the key thing I wanted to land is just like, I'm sure there's someone listening who has always at the back of their mind thought they could see themselves doing it, but oh God, it would be so scary, and oh God, I don't know if it would go well. But all I'm saying is there is so much bad stand-up out there right now. the worst case scenario, you'll just be adding one more to the pile, and best case scenario, you'll be coming away with a phenomenal experience that may even like transform you a little bit.
Okay.
So you made the point there just before now that this was something difficult to do, and I fully agree. It's very, very difficult, but also massively rewarding.
Yeah, it's a high risk, high reward, right? I mean,
but is it high risk? Like, what's the risk? Like,
no, I mean, if you're probably in a room full of people you don't know, right? Yeah. So it's just your ego bruised for a few hours if you get
I don't see any
booed
risk
off or however it works, right?
You'll never get booed off. What you'll get is silence, right?
Silence, which is worse.
Yeah,
in that context.
But even dealing with that will be invaluable to you, because imagine you say a joke and it ends on, and that's why the phone was on the table, and you're waiting for the big explosion of laughter, and it just never comes, right? So how do you deal with that moment? Like you now have to reach into yourself and find a way to get through this. And you'll develop that skill then by doing it once or twice or how many times. And that same skill will stand to you in many, many other times. When you're left without words, when you're left without any idea of what to do next, you'll draw upon whatever experience you've had in that painful moment, right?
That's resilience and agility, right? Like that's 100%. What it comes down to.
I really think so. Because if you go through life without taking these horrible, painful moments, like you won't grow, you won't get better. So like, God, I didn't expect to get so philosophical, but like, I really think if there's anyone out there who wants to try, please do. I think you won't regret it.
I think that's a great shout. And I don't think, like, for me, for example, it's never an idea that's, popped in my head. Like, and I think there might also be a generational aspect, I don't know, but where going to the comedy club isn't what it used to be.
I think it's dead, basically, as a thing, because the internet has proven to be just way better.
You just go on YouTube and find whatever you want there, or
and it's better. Like I can go. I know pretty much that if I want to laugh, I can be laughing in the next 30 seconds for free. I don't need to go pay €50 to go to a comedy club and drag myself into town for a maybe hit or miss experience, by the way. Like, and remember, as I said, like the level of comedy, especially in non-English speaking countries, is very patchy. Like you may have a good time, you may have an absolutely terrible time, and you will be sitting there wondering, why didn't I just go to YouTube and watch?
It could end up being a really shitty night, right?
Oh, 100%. It's a complete dice roll. Like, and that does make it all the sweeter when it's good. Like when you stumble across some new talent and you're like, whoa, this was amazing. But for every one of those, there's about 20 people who have self-selected to make their life about being a comic, and unfortunately aren't going to make it, But that's just part of the deal, and we move on. But
In this theme, actually, as we love to throw out recommendations, did you ever see Scorsese's King of Comedy with De Niro?
I didn't, and I really need to, because we saw Joker. I think we saw Joker together, and
very inspired,
heavily inspired, right? But no, I didn't see it.
Yeah, and that was actually at the time that movie was just destroyed by critics, and Scorsese had basically done that, and something along the lines of the Jesus movie Passion, along these lines.
Okay.
And that's when he then fell into this huge depression and was on coke and everything, and then Raging Bull kind of brought him back. But basically that movie revisited now, everyone loves it.
Absolutely.
And it's a vintage De Niro performance, but basically he plays this stand-up comic who starts stalking a guy played by Jerry Lewis, who's a comedian in the movie. And a lot of what you're talking about, you see a lot of that in the film, and I think it's masterfully done. So I just wanted to throw that out there as a timeless piece on the stand-up scene.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can't see yourself ever taking the plunge into the world of stand-up?
I mean, I don't know. Yeah. After what you've told me, you've planted the seed. That's
I think
for sure.
Because remember, it doesn't necessitate being funny to get a laugh on stage.
Right, that's the thing. Right?
What it necessitates is joke structure, right?
Timing. That's always the
timing
joke,
is huge. Yeah. But then Dara O'Brien, a very famous Irish comedian, put it perfectly. He comes from a science background before he was, or debating and science background before he became a comic. And what his realization was is that the thing that makes a joke funny for a stand-up is that the key word, the punch word, is the last word in the sentence. So the word that makes the thing a joke has to be last. And you can just do that. Like you can sit down with a funny idea and then reword the sentence so that the punch word comes last. And there you go. There you have a joke now.
Right.
And you can say that to an audience and they will laugh because the structure is set up to generate a laugh. If the punch word comes in the middle of the sentence, they won't laugh because they're still listening for the rest of the sentence. So it's like little realizations like that you can just hack, basically. Like you can science your way through writing a stand-up set, you know, and all you need is 5 minutes, right? They call it a tight five. So any comedy club, you know, with an open mic, you tell them I have 5 minutes, they'll be like, yeah, off you go.
Right.
What's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, go for it.
But that's crazy that you say 5 minutes and I'm sitting there, or that crowd is sitting there in Baltimore watching Chris Rock do that for 1 hour,
yes.
60 minutes.
And an hour is a very different beast, right? Like these comedians, even obviously Chris Rock is an absolute legend of the game, and I'm sure it's no problem for him. But most comedians, I think, when they put an hour together, it's like writing a novel. It's like a proper big piece of work.
And I imagine he has a writer's room as well.
For sure. He's a product of it. Like he is a company kind of at this point where he would have a staff, like, but when you start out as a comedian, you're still working towards that 1 hour, right? And like being a novelist, you know, it's you on your own, like you have to find it, and for every 5 minutes of material there's probably 30 that didn't make the cut, right? So you really have to be like prolific, even if you're writing like crazy, to get to that level. And of course, I'm not saying everyone needs to go do that. I'm just saying try a 5 minute set, you know, because an hour is a whole other thing.
Look at that. You all of a sudden a pitch man for the comedy industry.
Yeah, but just don't expect to make money from it, because it's that's only going one
detail.
way. Yeah, forget about it. Yeah. But you'll enjoy it. You won't mind about the money thing.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. If you say so. Well, listeners, there you have it. Our comedy guru.
What little I know, but passing on what I can. Do we have a closing take then on Chris and his work?
On Chris in general, or on this recent
I suppose
special?
To summarize on the special, you're kind of like, you like it, you think people should watch it, you're happy with it. Yeah.
I don't think anybody... Now, if you like Chris Rock, right, because that's the caveat. If you don't like that type of a bit raunchy comedy, stay away, right? Because it's always Chris Rock, right? You know what you're going to get. But if you're into that, I don't think anybody's going to go into it and say, give me that hour back, right?
Okay. Cool.
Well, listeners, let us know, and then you can come at me if that's not true. But I think definitely worth it, and you know, within the context, I think great. Now, if there's some great all-time Chris Rock performances that you can also find, you know, on YouTube and stuff, and that's just him at his best. Those I would definitely recommend.
So I suppose what you're saying is, if you want to go watch some good Chris Rock, just go do that instead.
Yeah,
if you want to hear,
that's what I'm getting at. Yeah.
Exactly. And if you want to hear about the slap, you have to watch the last 10 minutes of this one.
Yeah.
And the rest you can take or leave.
Also, because the issue with this one, having been on Netflix, is you've probably already in the last couple of days, in whatever newspaper you read, have read probably the key punchlines.
Such a shame.
Which is a shame, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of the thing, like, why a lot of the time when you go to watch these big comedy shows, they actually give you a bag into which to lock your phone.
Big
right?
fan of those. Yeah. I think that should be every event. Everything.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But also, like, just extending that, I think also at concerts, because you nowadays, like, and you hear a lot of artists talking about it, that they're just staring out into, you know, 10,000 people with screens, and it's just like, and flashlights, and it's like people are actually watching you perform live, but through their phone.
But I was at a concert where it was, I saw Tool in Dublin about a year ago, and it was extremely strict. They didn't take your phone off you, but they were like, you'll get one warning, and if we see you with your phone again, you are out of this gig.
Okay.
And they did not hesitate. Like, there was people behind us, in front of us, who, what happened was, there was all these guys bouncers whose only job was to look into the crowd, and then if they saw a phone up, they would shine a torch directly into the phone lens, because you can't miss that if you're filming. You're like, whoa, okay. And then they didn't take the warning, and then the guys just in front of us did it again, and then they're like, you're out, guys. You were warned, like, that's it. And then the great thing was, at the end of the gig, they played the last song, the encore. Maynard James Keenan comes out, the lead singer, and he says, okay, now you can start filming on your stupid phones. And then everyone's phone comes out for the last song.
Away.
Yeah. But at least that's a good compromise, where he was like, you know, he knows that everyone wants to
He knows this is 21st century.
Yeah, and everyone wants to get a shot to show they were there, and it's something to remember. I get it. And he picked a song that he's very confident in, so it's all fine. But I think that was spot on. It was like, enjoy the gig, don't film it, and then, maybe at the end, get a little clip.
Yeah. Listeners, you're there for a live performance. Enjoy it at face value. And we'll come back after the break. Welcome back, listeners. We've got a special segment lined up for you now where we've actually been inundated by listener postulations after we did our Everest extravaganza last week.
It is. I know it sounds like you're exaggerating, but really, like this one did break the previous record for listener postulations.
Absolutely, the proverbial ice. So for those of you that are new, for those of you that don't know, probably you haven't gotten this far in this podcast, but for all three of you, let's sum up what we did last week. Essentially, Neil was given a mission by the United Nations for world peace. To fulfill this mission, he needed to draft a team of celebrities from pre-prepared lists to go and summit Mount Everest. Now, the team he chose, in no particular order, was 22-time Grand Slam tennis champion Serena Williams, in charge of the oxygen intake. Then, in charge of food rationing, from Finland, the Prime Minister Sanna Marin. Navigating us to the summit of Everest, Keanu Reeves. Running the entertainment part of the show, Inc. And then the captain and financier of the whole journey, Richard Branson. We also have Lionel Messi as an alternate, joining the troop up to the base camp and waiting for the rest of them there. Let's not forget Sherpa Kamirita, the world record summiter of Everest, is hand in hand with Neil going up this.
Amazing. What a team, eh?
Still happy with it?
I think so. Nothing I would change there, because I think if you go back and listen, like each of the ones I picked were kind of the best of a mixed bunch, let's say. And I know some listeners disagreed with me, but I do think, broadly speaking, it's a pretty strong team we got there.
I agree. I think it was great. So then, basically, from the first few hours that we sent out this podcast last week, we started getting listener postulations, and we've selected three in particular, or 2.5 here to share with you guys. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
All right. First one here, Roy from Chicago. A warning, Roy didn't really he followed some of the rules, but then he just started drafting everybody as a wild card. So he went full nuclear here, off-piste. But here's Roy's team. Athlete, Michael Phelps. His elite mentality and aerobic breathing superiority would help him acclimatize faster. Plus, the dedication to training is unmatched. He would be in charge of the oxygen intake. The master of controlled breathing, he will optimize O2.
I can't argue with that. It makes me, in hindsight, feel that I was perhaps a bit simplistic by saying, this isn't swimming, so he can't do it. Perhaps I oversimplified the case there, and he does have a very convincing argument on
the
this
lung
one.
capacity is a big deal.
That is a big one. Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a good shout.
Yeah.
Now, business person, Mary Barra. General Motors CEO. In a male-dominated industry, she has the reins on one of the most influential companies in America and is pioneering the race to electric vehicles. She would be the navigator. And she would be the best navigator with all the investments she has made in Cruise, GM's autonomous drive.
Like, I'm so impressed with the listener postulations, because they've done such a better job than me of actually giving real reasons why, like, linking it to actual facts, whereas I was just like, duh, she'll be good because she's really good. They really put me to shame here, but that's another good point.
Yeah.
I would stand by my questioning of how's her physical fitness, because let's be like, for all the...
She's probably in a car a lot.
Well, yeah, exactly. That can't be good. So not to trash the no. Like, obviously, I love the justification, and it's a brilliant one. And let's see how the rest pans out.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then Roy, for musician/author, he goes, "I'm going to throw a hybrid." David Blaine.
Yes.
He goes,
great call.
He goes, actually, I wouldn't be surprised if he has already climbed Everest.
Yeah.
But not fact checking. He may not even need oxygen, ?
Yeah.
And he would, of course, put David Blaine in charge of the entertainment, saying, imagine your mind being blown 25 8,000 feet in the air.
It would certainly distract you from the otherwise very uncomfortable environment. But 100% agree with this one. No better man. And if you want any evidence of his endurance, look no further than the episode of Hot Ones that he went on, where he ate increasingly spicy wings with not one reaction. He just was like, yep, very good wings.
David Blaine.
He's eating Scovilles in the thousands, and he's just like, yeah, no problem.
Is he still doing stuff? I haven't watched David Blaine on anything in
I think
a decade at least.
He went around to publicize a live show he was doing in, I'm going to say New York, actually, off Broadway. So he was like, I think just selling tickets to live shows like that, where it's all mentalism and a bit of endurance stuff. But like, yeah, he's still knocking around. Yeah.
Good for him.
He kind of he dented his brand a little bit with the London box stunt that he did, which like, he drastically underestimated how bad an anonymous audience will behave when they have a chance to throw things at a box in London. So like he had a generally quite bad time, I think,
Londoners
hanging out in London. So that he kind of disappeared for a while, but I think he's back in the game.
Okay, good for David.
Yeah.
So going up Everest with Roy. World leader. Now Roy, master of current events, chooses Zelensky.
Yes.
And I mean, he goes, doubted by many, but proved to be a leader. A younger man who, after a year of hell, still looks strong and ready for the challenge.
True.
And he would be his captain, saying, a leader of men. And for those who may have forgotten, backup entertainment.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
What a shout.
I like it when Roy's thinking like not only in terms of who's best for each role, but who can also multi-purpose on their roles. That's pretty strong.
I think Roy from Chicago's gunning for our jobs here.
I'm kind of seeing this as a CV application for LIP chief broadcaster. This is
unbelievable.
Huge.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, Zelensky, great shout. And people, forget that he used to be an actor and a comedian actor, actually.
Yeah. His show got a big bump on Netflix at the start of the invasion. But,
Servant of the People.
Yeah, exactly. But I haven't watched it, but...
no, me neither.
Seems to be, by all accounts, a good show. Yeah?
Unreal. Now, actor/actress, Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Almost a blend of method acting and master of weight manipulation. He will go to the extremes to prepare for the role of a lifetime. And he would be, what does he have him as here? He has him as the food rasher. Who better to control the food than the man who famously only ate an apple a day to prepare for the role in 2004's The Machinist?
Yes, that picture does the rounds on Reddit every now and then.
Gosh.
Now, the only thing with Christian is we've also heard his angry outburst on set. And that would actually give me pause, because like I know he'll get through it, but he may leave the other celebs like shook from like losing the rag at them, like that's not okay, So if Roy's okay with taking that risk, then so am I.
Well, there you go, Christian Bale. Yeah, I think it can be really hit or miss with Christian Bale. He could also just like say screw it, while you're a bit up through the mountain, and not screw it like I'm going home, but screw it, I'm gonna up the ante and sprint up.
You're on your own. Yeah. I'll take it from here, says Christian. Yeah.
Christian Bale. And then Roy has a reserve. This is an interesting one. Actress Alicia Vikander. She's Swedish. You might know her from Danish Girl, Ex Machina. But here he explains.
Okay. Yeah.
While many doubted the Tomb Raider reboot, she proved battle ready with an absolutely shredded body and practicing survival skills in prep for the role. And who can forget her in Ex Machina? Apparently you.
Well, I haven't seen it. Actually, I'm scrolling her IMDb here and just being like, nope. So she's one of those people I have like a blind spot on, but I'll take Roy's word for it. I think that's a safe call. Yeah.
Well, Roy from Chicago, thanks for your team with Michael Phelps, Mary Barra, David Blaine, Prime Minister. Is it President or Prime Minister?
President
Zelensky, Christian Bale, and Alicia Vikander.
I mean, it's a strong crew. Had I any of those to choose from, I might have considered them.
Just Michael Phelps.
Exactly. Phelpsy was didn't make the cut of my team for not very good reasons, but still amazing crew right there.
Yeah. Thank you, Roy from Chicago. And now we have another one queued up here. It's Frank from Rhode Island who sent in a voice memo, and we'll have the producer play that for you here.
Hello, Lost in Postulation folks. I wanted to share my thoughts on who I wanted to draft to Mount Everest on this expedition. And as soon as you mentioned that there was going to be a draft, I said, no matter what happens, whoever they mention as potential candidates, Keanu Reeves has to be on it. So if there was going to be a wild card scenario, I would have included him. But luckily, he was there in terms of famous people from the actors. And so it was clear that he was going to be my first pick. And I decided to put him as my navigator, as he is really, one with nature. I think he would be one of the people that if we ever lost the Sherpa, he would still find a way to lead us to the top of Everest. And additionally, because we're trying to save the world and garner world peace, Keanu Reeves has done this in his movies. He's a lovable character, as seen with John Wick, or also in movies like Always Be My Maybe. But he also helped create a song that created world peace in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. So I think he's also a good fit on that front. On the business people, I thought actually, or it was very easy, and I chose Melinda Gates. Melinda Gates is one of the world's largest philanthropists, and I think she would be ideal for a food rationer on this trip because she knows and she's seen how people are doing this across the world. But most importantly, I think, we're still seeing her as Melinda Gates from the Bill and Melinda Gates. And I think she has a bit of a chip on her shoulder and she just wants to be presented to this world as just Melinda. And I think this is the perfect opportunity for her to do just that. Then I thought about, athletes. Who could that be? And, what I found key, is Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is a man who has swam so much, that has won so much. One of the key things is he knows how to breathe. And so I designated him as my oxygen boss because I think in the time that training, he's going to teach everyone on this team some training techniques to succeed so that when we do get to the top, yes, he's able to pass it around, but people also have a higher tolerance and lung volume. Some last people, I thought, Jacinda from New Zealand as captain, great world leader, someone who people look up to. And this, I know she wants a rest, but I think she wants to go out with a bang, and this is the perfect opportunity for her. Now, I've got two last picks. I've decided from the musician world, I've decided to put this person as an alternative because I don't think there's any chance this person could climb the mountain, but he's there for a good time, not a long time. He's going to be so incredibly happy to just stay at the base, get to meet people, and that's Shaggy. Shaggy's going to just stay there at the base. He's going to be the type of person where other teams are training to go up the mountain, and he's going to share his experience, even though he has absolutely no idea how that works. And then lastly, I thought entertainer. I looked at all the categories, and I wasn't satisfied. And I said, we need someone who is always upbeat, and, even when you're climbing the mountains, is going to be dropping banter left and right, like, oh, don't you wish we had a car to get up this mountain? So I decided to pull a wild card. And my wild card is, it's coming out of me like lava, star from Bridesmaids, Saturday Night Live, Melissa McCarthy. She's going to be the true anchor. And those are my picks. So Michael Phelps is oxygen boss, Jacinda as captain, Keanu as navigator, Shaggy is the alternative, Melinda is the food rationer, and Melissa McCarthy is the wild card. And Neil, I thought about having Vin Diesel there at a certain point as an anchor, but I thought both him and Keanu would be anchors, and I think that could have led to some conflict there, actually, having Vin and Keanu. So I decided let's just keep Keanu, and Vin can keep producing Fast and Furious movies 28 to 35. Thanks, gents, and I hope you like my picks and they don't spark too much controversy.
Well, Frank from Rhode Island, thanks for actually playing by the rules, unlike our friends from the upper Midwest in Chicago. Much appreciated.
I mean, it's not an established format. I can understand listeners taking a wrong turn here and there, so it's fine. I'll let it slide. Yeah.
We'll let it slide. Let it slide. Thoughts?
Overall, very strong. Again, like, I have to give credit to the listeners for doing, again, as I said earlier, a better job than I did of actually like linking their choices to something real world and actually like relevant, Great to see Keanu made the cut once again. Like
consensus All-American there, huh?
As you said in the last episode, like I think you said something like, I struggle to see anything wrong with this guy, like negative whatsoever.
Right.
Seems like that's pretty much like the consensus, like out there. Everyone seems to love him.
Keanu comes out a winner from LIP.
Yeah, 100%. Shaggy was a huge call. That was kind of an unprompted recall as well. Like Shaggy is still knocking around. Don't know if he's making much music, but I mean, I'd be happy to have him on board if he's up for it.
Yeah. And apparently, like, I mean, just having him hang out at the base camp, meeting people, entertaining, having fun, you know, that's
Mr.
a great
Bombastic himself, yeah.
Mr. Bombastic.
Jacinda, I don't know, I'm just not totally sold on. Again, like, I just feel like, you know, she's put herself forward, but does she really want to do it? You know, she wants a break, I think. Still, maybe I'm latching onto that too hard. But as I said on the last episode, I think her in her prime is totally welcome. I just don't want to force it upon her right now.
And we had Phelps again here.
Yeah, Phelps
again in charge of the oxygen.
And I think we had at least one or two other listeners say the same thing who were like, Neil is mad for not taking Michael Phelps. Maybe I was. As I said, maybe I was too simplistic. But great to have him in charge of the oxygen. I mean, that's a winner right there.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's an interesting theory on Melinda Gates.
Yeah, again, I wish I knew more to kind of... I mean, I can't deny that she would be the right person to hand out the food, but like... yeah, I don't know. I feel like I still am a bit suspicious if she's the right one.
You're suspicious of Melinda or of Melinda on Everest?
On Everest specifically.
Okay.
I'm just like, I don't have, you know, the way sometimes you just have a gut feeling where you're like, I don't know about this, you know? That's what I'm feeling here.
Okay.
Hope it goes well. Hope I'm wrong. But
But good teams all around. And I had forgotten actually about Keanu having experience with World Peace and Bill and Ted.
100%. Yeah.
Unreal.
This man has experience on many fronts. I can tell you that much.
Yeah. I think there's half a pot on Keanu at some point.
He's add him to the wall. Remember, it seems like every week we're like another patron saint of Lost in Postulation.
Exactly.
Here's another one. Add him to the wall of fame.
Yeah. Unbelievable.
Well, fantastic.
Well, there we are.
Yeah. I think we had one more that I really wanted to drop in just as it's not a full squad. I just thought I couldn't resist. And it is someone who has appeared on the podcast before, actually. It's our friend in Finland. I'm talking, of course, of Ilkka.
Sauna King.
Sauna King. I mean, that's what we know him as, but he has also a bit of a postulation as to one of my choices. So you might remember as you recapped, I picked Sana Marin. I don't think he objects to Sana joining in principle, but he really reacted to the role that I gave her. So I'm just going to read what he said. He sent me this quite quickly after we released the last episode. He said, "No, you can't leave Sana to take care of food rations. You'll run out of food halfway to the top, brackets, or if there's a place to borrow more in Everest, then that could work, close brackets. Social Democrats are great at spending. Our national debt has never been higher than in Sana's era." So quite a roast of Sana coming from a Finn, like who would know, you know, like,
right.
But it was funny because as we've mentioned about Sana, I thought she was like pretty universally loved, you know, like she seems, at least across the global internet, she's like mega popular.
Right.
Every time she comes up on Reddit or Twitter or whatever, everyone's like, amazing.
Because they're not into the policy of it, right? When you don't live there. Yeah.
And the few Finns who I've spoken to here, say in Denmark, whenever I mention Sana, they're like, oh, amazing. She's so cool, right?
Right.
And then I was like, do Finns actually not like Sana? And then I actually went away and Googled, and actually, no, they don't.
Well, there you go.
Her popularity is waning like crazy. And it's looking like she's going to struggle to be re-elected, actually.
Wow.
There's an election coming up in like a month from now, and her approval has been tanking.
Well, then she'll have time to come up Everest with you.
She certainly will. But shocking revelation. And a big thank you to Ilkka, not only for challenging my assertion of Sana's ability to ration food. Apparently she would just give it all away, but also opening my eyes to her waning popularity.
Wow.
I was shocked.
Wow. Bye Sana.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think there's an interesting underlying postulation to that, where you cannot put any politician from any side of the spectrum in charge of the food rationing, because if you have someone leaning potentially too far left, they'll give a lot to everyone very early.
Exactly.
Too far right, they might keep all the rations for themselves.
Yeah.
So do not put a politician in charge of the food ration.
The right wings wouldn't. They'd be like, well, if I gave you this food, you wouldn't be motivated to get any more, would you?
They would build a wall around the food.
Exactly. They'll be like, you'll get this when you start your own climbing club. Yeah, I don't know. So lots to consider there.
Recipe for disaster.
Absolutely.
Politicians on Everest.
Politicians on Everest, who needs them? I think we could rule them out altogether. But I think my main takeaway here is the listener postulations are so good. Like they do genuinely a better job than I have, and we, let's say even that we have done at like justifying their choices. And I just think great stuff. And not just today, but also every listener postulation we've had so far. So all I'm going to say is bring it on, bring more and more. I think it's great stuff.
Please do, listeners. We wanna hear from you on every front. We really appreciate it. It's great to see the podcast not just growing in terms of listeners, but in terms of engaged listeners.
Exactly.
Like that's all we can ask for.
That's what we're here for.
I'm getting emotional just saying it. So
he's crying right now. Yeah. Yes, you can't see it, but he's shedding a tear. He's not.
Fantastic. Well, listeners, thanks again. As always, you can reach us on Twitter. That's @inpostulation. You can also email us with any postulation you'd like for us to look at. That's lostinpostulation@gmail.com.
It's been a pleasure. Talk to you all next time.
Always a pleasure, never a chore.